Okay, ɛberɛ no awie du a ɛno so Nyankopɔn ama yɛn nkwa ne ahoɔden ama yɛakɔ asɔre aba na yɛma obiara akɔ aba yɛde mo ba yɛn dwumadi a yɛato no din Hope Fulfilled. Hope Fulfilled. Anidasoɔ a aba mu. Because there are so many promises in the Bible. Bible no promises bebree wɔ mu. Na saa promises no, it gave them hope. Now, in our time, these promises have been fulfilled. Therefore, these hope have been fulfilled. For instance, share uh, the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and so on and so forth. They all anticipated, the kingdom. More eschaton, no, and also more eschatological hope, was about the kingdom, according to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 10, right down to 16 and 39. And so they had that hope. They were given that hope of that inheritance. Daniel chapter 12, verse 13. And First Peter chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. And it talks about hope of inheritance. And as this inheritance, kingdom, this kingdom which these patriarchs are going to inherit at the end of the eschaton. You understand? For because Daniel was told to sleep till the time of the end. So they had that hope of entering into the kingdom. But today you and I do not hope for this kingdom because kingdom na hindi na yɛden aba ɛmɛn de me no nyinaa yɛwɔ saa hindi no mu. Ɛte saa na ɛte. And in this case, the delay of this, the delay of the fulfillment of this hope, made their heart sick. That should have been the case, but because they were guided by the faith in God, they did not, they did not have their heart second, but they earnestly anticipated, the fulfillment of this hope, the resurrection and the kingdom. So, but the minimum we have obtained that measure of, we have obtained a measure of these two, the resurrection and the kingdom. The resurrection and the kingdom goes, hand in hand. So, bako fulfill bako. Okay, I can say Matthew chapter 8, verse 9 to 12 now, it talks about the kingdom and resurrection. It is and the kingdom and then resurrection has definitely what occurred. Anyway, that is not what we are going to talk about today. But then and he said, hope also subscribe to your YouTube channel now. You can do so by searching for Hope Fulfilled. Hope Fulfilled. Local YouTube I will share Hope Fulfilled. Yeah, videos be especially even this particular series. I remember the one which I'm going to talk about in a jiffy is a series. And see, so um to understand this, it's say nya ɛberɛ na wɔde hwɛ previous videos no nti da ɛno bɛma woanya saa nteaseɛ no in full. Anyway, wobɛtumi subscribe to your YouTube channel no. At least wowɔ question bi so a you can leave it there. Now we will deal with it appropriately. Ɛti sɛdeɛ yɛka no for some time now yɛahwɛ biribi concerning the judgment, okay, which Peter said is going to be started in the household of God or the household of God. So to them, they knew that there's going to be a judgment of the household of God. Na saa kasa wei ɛna yɛn de bebree no yɛdi nkɔmɔ yɛ so say a lot of us believe that the judgment has not come, and even to some extent the kingdom has not also come. So we are all waiting for the time when God or when Christ will descend with a shout of an archangel and to ablaze this geophysical creation, and as well as awaken or to wake up those who are fallen asleep in him. Some people call it rapture, others do not call it rapture because in that millennial world, the mainstream churches of Christ, they believe that when Christ return will be the time of the dissolution of this entire universe and everything in it. So it is going to be a one-time event, and it is not going to be a succession. It's not going to be a successive, event. So this idea of rapture does not add up in reality. That is what they believe. In fact, based on second Peter chapter 3, they believe, but there are others who also believe that there's going to be successors, there's going to be man of sin, there's going to be, uh, you know, um, physical, descending of the kingdom and so on and so forth, as well as, future judgment. So there are a lot of, all these things being promoted in the mainstream, Christendom. So, but we believe that all have been fulfilled. Father Christ. All right. So then, yeah, you go so good. So depending on your belief or your belief system, it imparts your doctrine of eschatology or your understanding of eschatology. Yeah. Uh, that is just by the way. Anyway, so um, like I said, Hope Fulfilled is the name of this, channel. So when you want to subscribe to our channel, you can do so by going to the by going on YouTube and searching for Hope Fulfilled and subscribed. Once you subscribe it, you have to hit the bell so that whenever we publish or upload new video, you may have the opportunity to view it firsthand. Anyway, so that make kind of yɛahwehwɛ biribiara concerning that particular text. Say Nyankopɔn atemmuo no bɛstarte ɛfiri asɔredan mu. Nti ɛyɛ a na bebree no believe sɛ okay, well, this judgment has not come sɛdeɛ na meka no previously no. So obi yɛ bɔne bi ebi a Kristoni bi yɛ bɔne a na ɔmo make it quickly na ɔmo sɛ sɛdeɛ yɛkaeɛ no sɛ that judgment is going to start in the household of God. But then if you take a critical look at that text, that is First Peter chapter 4 verse 17, you realize that Peter only had in mind the Jerusalem temple, that the Jerusalem temple is going to be put under dissolution, or is going to be dissolved in judgment against these unbelievers, because eventually at some point in time Israel became utterly corrupt, and they persecuted the Christians and those who were of the way. They persecuted them, okay, in order that they may take away Christianity, or the reality of the kingdom, uh, the new and emerging gospel that was being promoted by the apostles. So in order to dim the fire or the potency of this movement promoted by the apostles and being worked out by the Holy Spirit in dwelling in them, they found it necessary to persecute them, so they be on be na ntumi spread it saa Nyankopɔn asɛm no ɛwɔ first century no. Nti saa na ɛte ɛwɔ hɔ. Nti promotion no ɛwɔ at it was at the temple, Jerusalem temple. No, if you say that was the site, no more promote this heinous and barbarian, you know, act against the faithful Christians in the in Jerusalem at the time, or as well as those the Gentile Christians as well. Because of that, God said, well, He's going to judge them, and that judgment is going to start from His household, because that temple was a sanctuary. So, sharing your previous videos now, yeah, make it 2 videos in connection to the uh, First Peter 4:17. And it's all person will share now. So that make our tears. I just okay your previous videos, and start what say they what appreciate what you, so that you're going to understand and appreciate what we are saying. Ɛnti sɛ wohwɛ adeɛ no nyinaa ne basis no anaasɛ n'ase nyinaa no ɛwɔ Ezekiel chapter 8 verse 11 and verse 12 and verse 13, whereby there was abomination that brings desolation, that was promoted in the household of God, in the sanctuary of God. You understand? So it got to a extent where God was provoked to anger, and He said, "Well, I'm not gonna spare anyone, and I'm going to deal with them in judgment." You understand? So He said that. Well, Ezekiel said there's something that is going to come, but in the first century, when all things were at hand, said the nneɛma nyinaa abɛn no. Kind First Peter 4, 5, 7. No, Peter can say now the time has come for judgment to begin in the household of God. So that judgment has now come. The judgment which Ezekiel prophesied prophesied that it was going to come has now come. So the Ezekiel Shahun comes says, "Ah, tembo never ban." Peter say, "They say the umbrella now says, ah, tembo na yeden eba." So it's going to start with them, and it's going to start at the temple. So that was the Jerusalem temple that was standing at the time. Now, yeah, bria, can't say, any temple, no. This and they can say there's going to be judgment in the household of God. And then which particular temple are we talking about? You understand? Because now God dwells in us with His kingdom in our hearts or in us. You understand? So there's no one particular kingdom standing, or there's no one particular temple standing, okay, which is spreading hate and persecution among Christians of the day. You understand? See, no reason why Peter can't ask them to say they were fighting against the Christians. You understand? They were fighting against the Christians, and then Christ said, "Well, I'm going to deal with these people. I'm going to judge them. I'm going to destroy their city and the temple." But first and foremost, that judgment is going to start from his household. It's going to start from that temple, that Jerusalem temple, because that was the site for inciting, crime against the Christians. So it was going to deal with them. So share Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 6 now can be beer ewo ho who video ɛwɔ your channel you so if you want to understand what I'm saying and what I'm trying to promote or demonstrate, it will be necessary for you to go back to our previous videos to be able to understand that. Nti yɛhwɛ biribi kakra so saa kasa yi ara bi yɛhwɛ biribi yɛbɛtumi ahwɛ biribi wɔ Amos chapter 3. Amos chapter 3 pertains to it's also a judgment text. Okay, it's also a judgment text. So we are not going to read all. We are only going to focus attention on the verse 2. If you have time, you can you know uh, you can read it all out, and you are going to appreciate it that it relates to that Jerusalem judgment. So it said that you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So you remember Deuteronomy chapter 14, I believe verse 5, and Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6 to 7. Okay, and so on and so forth. God said that He has, ye Israel, see who send my concron. You understand? So on the whole wild world, at the time, on now onim at the time of Amos, Moses, they also on the pet any crew or the onim omo. So you alone have I know of all families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. So God is going to punish them for their iniquities or transgression. You understand? So He's going to deal with them, and He's going to punish them. He's going to one of the iniquities was the uh, promotion of desolations in the household of God in the Jerusalem temple. If you remember, in the I believe prior to AD 60, AD 66, prior to the Judo-Roman war, um, the leader of the Zealot movement, there were certain uprisings, against the Roman Empire because these people sought freedom for themselves. So there were certain formations, or certain movements that were, aim or whose aim were to emancipate themselves from the Roman rule. So uh, uh, they rebel against them, and then they fought them, but eventually they lost because that particular war was a spiritual judgment against them, and that God hands was in it, and God enabled the Roman to bring judgment upon apostate Israel. So they are now at it was you alone have known. One of the problem more iniquities since they brought abomination of desolation in the temple, and this was the leader of the high priest, the leader of that zealot movement, the Scarai and the zealot movement. If you want to read about the war, you can do so by checking on Josephus, who bore witness to all these things. So this zealot leader Eliza Ben Simon seized the temple, and he drew on the walls, and desecrated the walls, and that war this desecration and also declaring war against the saints brought desolation upon Jerusalem in AD 70. So that is the judgment that we are talking about. And that is the judgment Peter said it was going to occur, and it was going to occur in their time. Now remember, First Peter 4:17 said, if it started with us, or if it start with us. So the us was, Peter and his contemporaries, in the first century, but not us. If audience relevance is anything to go by, he was speaking to them, and he wasn't talking to me. So I cannot read myself into that ancient text. Sana I think ɛwɔ hɔ. Ɛnti sɛ yɛhwɛ bibi yɛhwɛ nti ayɛ videos bebree nti yɛkɔ so yɛbɛhwɛ adeɛ bi wɔ look so ɛka saa asɛm no bi ɛwɔ hɔ, but we just need certain broadening of our horizon in order to understand that uh, Luke chapter 12 verse 42, or the Luke chapter 12 verse 1 to Luke chapter 12 pertains to judgment against the Jerusalem temple. So because that was the focal point, and we have to appreciate and understand it from that perspective. At a honor, I believe Luke chapter 19. Um, oh, where is the text? Luke chapter 12, and we start from 35 downwards. He said that let your waist be girded, and your lamps burning, and you yourself be like men who wait for their master when he will return from the wedding. When he will return from the wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. Blessed are those. So now, you see, they say that let their ways be guarded. Now, Jesus was urging all, to be watchful, to watch and be ready, okay, to get up the to get up the gates of the lions. That is watchful, for the eminent parousia, eminent parousia of Christ. You see, I said tree na kasa boaboso. That is just a cherry to say be ready. Boaboso, you're ready now. A brain iden, a brain don iden, a be ready for this. For someone to come. So it's a sign of readiness. But here it's talking about absent master. When the Christ was absent from them. Okay, and the time the fact that his eminent, or his second coming was eminent. At that moment and at that juncture. See, though even though when he spoke of this, he was alive, but he was always trying to tell them that in his absence, this is what is going to take place, and it's going to come in their time, and therefore in his absence, everyone should be prepared, for his second coming, which is going to come like a lion. He's going to come and deal a devastating blow to the unbelievers. So it was a sign that he ought to be prepared, towards his coming. So he says that, well, blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, will find watching. You understand? So I believe Revelation chapter 16, talks something about that. Blessed are those who watch. You understand? So that the day will not come upon them, like a thief. I say to you, what I say to you, that he will get himself and have them sit down to eat, and will come and serve them. So this is the time of the marriage supper of the Lamb. And if he should come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house that has known what hour the thief will come, he would have watched and not allow his house to be broken into. So it was a sign, or it was a warning to the unbelievers, and it was a sign, uh, telling them that more, more, no, more man watch. This is what is going to befall them. Now remember, Peter, our First Peter 4:7, say the end of all things is at hand, so they should be ready. So Christians at the time, they had the opportunity to, they had the opportunity by observing, certain occurring, signs, which were eminent, parousia and the judgment signs, eschatological signs, what they will have to look out for. And the Peter, through the Holy Spirit in him, admonish the Christian that, and warn them that, well, the end is now near, so they should be watchful, so that when they see Jerusalem compassed with the army, they can flee to the mountain Pella, for safety. You understand? So this is what he's trying to say. saa na ɔpɛ sɛ ɔka ɛwɔ hɔ sɛ ɛno ɔmo no see to the unbelievers Christ is going to come upon them the second coming was going to come upon them like a thief in the night the same motive the same motive ɛna ɛwɔ the same motive na ɛwɔ yɛka sɛn what First Thessalonians chapter 5, the same, coming, thief coming, the same motive. So it was the same, second coming of Christ, which occurred in AD 70, and it was it was something that occurred or befell upon the unbelievers. Somebody no money, so it just took them by a surprise, like a thief in the night. So he's telling them that nkomunima, those servants, so nkomunima, nkomo ebe train, I mean, some be watchful, they will not hold sleep because if they had known the hour. But remember, Christ said that the hour no one knows yet. But of course, He gave them the sign. That is why He gave them the sign to look, to look out for. That when they see these signs occurring, then they should know that the end is near. And they were lucky enough to have been foretold in advance, or to have been foretold in advance, or told in advance that Christ is. These are the signs. The end is now near, so they should get themselves and to prepare to live and to escape prepare to live to escape that imminent judgment and the parousia upon the unbelievers. Now, so it says that in his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at the hour you do not want to know. So Christ was going to come at the hour they do not know. But of course, there are certain things when Christ was whilst he was with the apostles, he had no idea of. But when he was taken up, after 40 days resurrection, when he was taken up, he knew when these things are coming. So the Holy Spirit that was sent upon the apostles forewarned them, okay, to keep in mind the signs that Jesus told them whilst he was alive with them, so that they will, escape in that, so that that coming and the judgment will not come upon them as a thief in the night. So they had the eminent signs of the parousia, and they prepared themselves, and even prior to the encompassment of Jerusalem by the Roman army, they had already fled into the mountains for safety. So he said that then Peter said to him, Lord, do you speak this parable only to us or to other people? And verse 42, reading from Luke chapter 12, verse 42, and it is in connection with First Peter 4, 17, the judgment of the household of God. Now it says that, and the Lord said, who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his master will make ruler over his house, to give them their portion of the food in due season. So this is the time of the wedding, the time of the wedding, those who will make it to the end. You remember there were a lot of apostasy, a lot of people apostatized as a result of the persecution that were meted out to them. Okay, some faith went cold. You understand? Some apostatized. But blessed are those who will keep, who God will make, the master of the house when he returns, and he's going to give them, food in his in portion of the food in due season. So the due season in due season is the time when he returns, even though they don't know the exact time or the hour. But of course, the signs were clear, and it was clear to them, and it indicated the imminence of the parousia. So they had already prepared. So when Christ came, he gave them certain comfort. They do not suffer any harm. When he returned in judgment, he used the Roman army as his pawn to carry out judgment against this apostate Israel. So that is what happened, and that is what occurred in AD 70. And the first place, the aim, or the focal point, that object or the focal point in the course of that judgment, was the Jerusalem temple, because that is where they had their command, that is where they had their power, to unleash, harm upon the saints in the first century. So it was eminent that whilst they attacked Jerusalem, the temple was not spared. It was destroyed and brought down to zero, exactly as Jesus Christ has what predicted. So first Luke chapter 12, uh, verse 35 to 42, all those with that judgment that was going to occur. The same judgment all throughout in the scriptures. So you don't have to apportion or separate or repeat second coming of Christ. It's just one, and it all occurred in AD 70. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hope Fulfilled, and we are going to have all the videos to watch. So you can also leave a comment, and I'm going to deal with them as and when you do so. Goodbye.